Imagine losing everything: your family, your freedom, your future. Imagine being betrayed by those closest to you, thrown into a pit and sold as a slave. What would you do? Would you give up? Would you seek revenge? Or would you find a way to rise above it all, guided by something greater than yourself? This is the incredible true story of Joseph, a young man from the Bible whose life teaches us powerful lessons about staying strong, doing what's right, and trusting in a bigger plan. Get ready to be inspired, because Joseph's journey is about to change how you see your own challenges. Our story begins in the land of Canaan. Joseph was Jacob's favorite son, and God showed Joseph his future through dreams. These dreams hinted that even his own family would one day look up to him. But these dreams didn't make his brothers happy. They made them very jealous. Their jealousy soon started a chain of events that would test Joseph's character, his faith, and his strong commitment to doing what was right. The first test: listening to his father. Joseph's first important act of obedience happened in Genesis chapter 37. His father Jacob asked him to go check on his brothers who were far away tending sheep. Joseph was only 17. He knew his brothers didn't like him much. They couldn't even say a kind word to him. But when Jacob asked, Joseph simply said, "Okay." He didn't ask why. He didn't complain. He just obeyed. He went on a long and possibly dangerous trip. This showed great respect for his father and a willingness to do his duty, even when it was hard or risky. This small act of obedience has a big message for us today. How often do our parents, teachers, or bosses ask us to do something that feels difficult, uncomfortable, or unfair? Joseph's example reminds us that listening to authority, especially when it's tough, builds strong character. It means putting aside our own feelings or fears for a bigger goal. Think about a student who works hard on a difficult assignment, or an employee who follows company rules. These everyday acts of doing what's expected out of respect and responsibility are like Joseph's first step of faith. They are times when we choose duty over what we want, and this helps us build our honesty and good character. The test of doing what's right: listening to God when tempted. Joseph's life took a bad turn when his jealous brothers sold him as a slave. He ended up in Egypt, working for Potiphar, an important officer of Pharaoh. Even though he was a slave, God was with Joseph and he did well. He quickly earned Potiphar's trust and was put in charge of everything in his house. Here, Joseph faced a different kind of test, a test of his moral strength. Potiphar's wife was attracted to Joseph and kept trying to get him to sleep with her. Day after day, she pushed him, but Joseph always said no. His answer wasn't just about refusing her. It was a clear statement of his loyalty. How could I do such a wicked thing and sin against God? Genesis 39:9. When she grabbed him, he ran away, leaving his coat behind. He chose to stay pure, even if it meant risking his life and good name. This important moment in Joseph's life teaches us a powerful lesson about obeying God and staying morally clean. In a world full of temptations, Joseph's firm stand reminds us that true obedience goes beyond just following rules. It's an inner promise to God's standards, even when no one is watching. It's about putting our relationship with God first and keeping our honesty above everything else. Think about today's examples: refusing to cheat on a test, or giving back extra change you received by mistake. These choices show Joseph's strong obedience. They are moments when we choose what is right, not just what is easy or good for us, showing deep respect for God and a promise to live a life that honors Him. The test of waiting and purpose: listening in hard times. After being falsely accused by Potiphar's wife, Joseph was put in prison. But even in this unfair situation, God was still with him. Joseph gained favor with the prison guard and was soon put in charge of the other prisoners. Here, he met Pharaoh's cupbearer and baker, who both had troubling dreams. Joseph, knowing that only God could explain dreams, faithfully told them what their dreams meant. One dream led to freedom, the other to death, just as he predicted. Even though his interpretations were correct, the cupbearer forgot about Joseph for 2 whole years after getting his job back. This time of waiting, of continued unfairness, was another test of Joseph's obedience, an obedience of patience and trusting in God's timing. When Pharaoh himself had upsetting dreams, the cupbearer finally remembered Joseph. Joseph was brought before Pharaoh. Again, he humbly said that his ability came from God. He explained Pharaoh's dreams about 7 years of plenty, followed by 7 years of hunger. Then he gave smart advice on how to get ready for the coming crisis. This showed not only his spiritual gift, but also his practical wisdom. Joseph's story in prison and with Pharaoh shows a key part of obedience, using our God-given talents to help others and to honor God, even in the hardest situations. It's about trusting God's timing and plan. In our daily lives, this means using our skills and knowledge to help others without expecting a reward right away. It's like a doctor giving an honest diagnosis, or a skilled worker doing good work even when no one is watching. It's a mentor sharing their knowledge to guide a younger colleague, showing faithful service and obedience to a higher calling. The biggest test: listening through forgiveness and God's big plan. Pharaoh saw that God was with Joseph and made him the second most powerful person in all of Egypt. Joseph, now a strong leader, carefully managed the years of good harvests, storing huge amounts of grain. When the famine hit, people from all over, including Canaan, came to Egypt to buy food, and who showed up before Joseph but his own brothers, who didn't know they were bowing down to the very person they had betrayed. Joseph recognized them right away, but he didn't tell them who he was at first. Instead, he tested them, watching their character and how much they cared for their youngest brother, Benjamin. This time of testing, which was stressful and uncertain for his brothers, showed Joseph's continued obedience to God's plan. He wasn't looking for revenge. He was guiding events, led by God's wisdom, to bring about peace and show God's bigger purpose. Finally, Joseph couldn't hold back anymore. He told his terrified brothers who he was. In one of the most touching scenes in the Bible, he cried openly and hugged them. His words, full of grace and deep understanding, sum up his obedience. "You meant to harm me, but God used it for good to save many lives." Genesis 50:20. He not only forgave them, but also comforted them, providing for his whole family and settling them in the best part of Egypt. This act of forgiveness is perhaps Joseph's most powerful example of obedience. Even after all the pain and unfairness he suffered, he chose to forgive instead of getting revenge. He looked past their bad intentions and saw God's powerful hand at work, turning evil into good. This is a deep lesson for all of us. True obedience means forgiving those who have hurt us, even when it feels impossible. It means trusting that God can make good come from everything, even hard or painful situations. It's about letting go of anger and choosing to make peace, believing that God's plan is always working. Forgiving a friend or family member who caused hurt and actively trying to make things right shows Joseph's kind of obedience. It also means accepting tough situations as part of a larger plan and trying to find God's purpose in them. The lasting message of obedience. Joseph's life, from being in a pit to ruling a palace, is a powerful story of God's faithfulness and how much a life lived in obedience can achieve. His journey teaches us that obedience isn't always easy. It often needs sacrifice, patience, and strong faith in God's unseen hand. But it is exactly through these acts of obedience, big and small, that God achieves his goals, not only in our lives, but through us, for the good of many. So what can we learn from Joseph's lasting example? We learn that obeying God, respecting authority, and following our own moral compass leads to purpose and blessings. It's about trusting that God is working, even when things look bad. It's about choosing honesty over temptation, forgiveness over anger, and faith over fear. May Joseph's story inspire us all to live a life of deeper obedience, knowing that by doing so we become tools in God's great plan, bringing light and hope to a world that needs it.